Simon Cowell ruled television with an iron fist. He judged thousands of contestants on American Idol, X Factor, and Britain's Got Talent, deciding the fate of careers worth millions of dollars with a single word. He was untouchable. He was invincible. And then, he vanished. The offers kept coming, the cameras kept rolling, and yet he stepped back, quietly, deliberately, leaving colleagues and fans stunned. What could make the man who had shaped over 10,000 careers suddenly walk away from it all? The answer isn't money. It isn't fame. It's Eric, his son, and a diagnosis that forced the toughest man in entertainment to confront a truth he had spent decades ignoring. Some battles aren't won with power, talent, or ego. Some battles are won with love. Life redefined by diagnosis. December 2018. And Simon Cowell walked into a small medical office knowing that his life was about to change forever. He had been preparing for this moment for months, telling himself he was ready for whatever the doctors might say. But when the words finally came, they still hit him with a force he had not expected. Autism spectrum disorder. 3 words that would reshape everything Simon thought he knew about fatherhood, about success, about what really mattered in life. His son, Eric, just 4 years old, had been officially diagnosed with a condition that would require specialized support, careful planning, and a complete restructuring of the world Simon had built around him. The doctors explained what the diagnosis meant in practical terms. Eric had significant trouble with speech. He reacted strongly to certain sounds and sensory inputs that most children would barely notice. He needed strict daily routines to feel safe and secure. Any changes to his environment, even small ones, could trigger overwhelming responses that left him unreachable. All of this matched what Simon had been observing for years, the patterns he had noticed but could not fully explain. Now it had a name. Now it had a framework. Now it was undeniably real. The report was not only about challenges, however. It also revealed Eric's remarkable strengths. He picked up patterns with extraordinary speed. He noticed details that most people completely missed. He could focus on subjects that interested him with an intensity that bordered on obsessive. His memory for sequences was far beyond what doctors expected for a child his age. The experts described his condition as moderate, meaning he would need significant support in some areas, but also had abilities that could flourish with the right environment and guidance. The goal was never to change who Eric was. The goal was to reshape the world around him so he could grow into the best version of himself. That evening, Simon sat beside Eric in their living room, watching his son carefully line up toy cars on the floor. Each car had to be in exactly the right position. Eric's focus was absolute, completely absorbed in the task, unaware that his father was processing information that would alter both their lives. Watching him in that moment, Simon saw things with painful clarity. Eric was not broken. He was not deficient. He was not less than any other child. He was simply different. And that difference came with its own kind of beauty that did not need fixing. But understanding that intellectually was one thing, living it would be something else entirely. The moment broke. The diagnosis had not come out of nowhere. Months before that December appointment, Simon had experienced a moment that shattered any remaining denial about what his son was going through. It happened during a family vacation when Eric was 4 years old. Simon had planned what he thought would be the perfect trip, a chance to step away from work and create beautiful memories with his son. But from the moment they arrived at the resort, everything went wrong in ways Simon had never anticipated. The environment was too loud. The atmosphere was too busy. Every aspect of the unfamiliar surroundings seemed to push Eric past limits that Simon did not fully understand yet. Eric struggled with the new food, refusing to eat things he had never seen before. He could not adjust to the changes in his sleep routine. Every small shift in schedule, every strange sight or sound, triggered reactions that left Simon feeling helpless and terrified. He tried everything he could think of to comfort his son, but nothing worked. Eric seemed trapped in a state of distress that no amount of parental love could penetrate. One evening, everything came to a devastating head. The resort terrace was filled with families enjoying dinner together, laughing and talking over pleasant background music. It should have been a beautiful moment. Instead, it became a nightmare. Eric froze completely. His hands flew to his ears. He started rocking back and forth in his chair as the noise built around him. The clinking dishes and rising chatter made everything worse with each passing second. Simon reached out to comfort him, speaking gently, trying to ground his son in the moment. But Eric was unreachable. Something inside him had shut down completely, and Simon could not find the switch to bring him back. That night, alone in their hotel room with Eric finally asleep after hours of distress, Simon called Lauren. They both knew they could not pretend anymore. They could not wait any longer. They needed professional help, not because they were afraid of what they might discover, but because they desperately needed to understand how to be better parents for a child who experienced the world in ways they were only beginning to comprehend. A voice delayed. Looking back after the diagnosis, Simon could trace the warning signs all the way to Eric's earliest years. As Eric moved from infancy into toddlerhood, Simon had picked up on patterns that did not match what he saw in other children. Eric had always been quieter than expected, more internal, more focused on his own world than on connecting with the people around him. As his second birthday approached, Simon realized with growing concern that his son still had not started speaking. Other children the same age were forming words, putting together small sentences, communicating their needs and wants with increasing clarity. Eric remained mostly silent. At first, Simon tried to convince himself that it meant nothing. Some children simply took longer to develop language. Some needed more time to find their voice. But people close to him offered constant reassurance. Every child grows at their own pace, they told him. Do not worry so much. He is fine. But Simon could not stop watching, could not stop cataloging the moments that felt unusual. His entire career had been built on observation, on noticing details that others missed, on understanding what made people different. And something about Eric was different in ways he could not articulate even to himself. When they went out together, Eric often seemed overwhelmed by his surroundings in ways that went beyond normal childhood discomfort. Loud places with flashing lights and crowds of people would trigger reactions that alarmed Simon even when everyone around him insisted everything was fine. Eric would cover his ears and turn his head away from stimulation that other children barely noticed. He would rock back and forth. He would retreat into himself, becoming unreachable even when Simon was right beside him trying to connect. At first, Simon attributed these moments to the chaos of celebrity life. Of course, a child would be overwhelmed by paparazzi and screaming fans and the madness that followed Simon everywhere he went. But the same reactions kept happening in familiar places, too, in environments that should have felt completely safe and comfortable. The patterns were consistent, and they were getting impossible to ignore. Sleep stopped coming easily for Simon during those months. He would lie awake, going over everything in his head, thinking about Eric's future, wondering if he was doing enough, questioning whether he was missing something critical that a better father would have caught immediately. The fatherhood unplanned. The irony of Simon's situation was not lost on him. For most of his adult life, he had no intention of becoming a father. He said it openly in countless interviews. He was too set in his ways, too focused on his career. too addicted to the freedom that came with answering to nobody but himself. Work always came first in Simon Cowell's world. Long hours, massive deals, endless travel, and the constant pursuit of the next big opportunity. That was his life, and he was perfectly content with it. The idea of raising a child, of being responsible for another human being's entire existence, seemed incompatible with everything he had built and everything he wanted to be. Then 2013 changed everything. Simon began dating Lauren Silverman, whose husband Andrew was actually Simon's friend. When Andrew filed for divorce and named Simon in the legal documents, the scandal exploded across every tabloid in the world. Then came the news that made everything more complicated. Lauren was pregnant with Simon's child. The man who swore he would never have children was about to become a father, whether he was ready or not. On February 14, 2014, Valentine's Day, Eric Philip Cowell was born. The name was a tribute to Simon's late father, a connection to the past that carried enormous emotional weight. Simon has spoken about the moment he first saw the scan of his unborn son, how something inside him shifted permanently and without warning. The man who had built his identity around independence and career ambition found himself thinking about family constantly. From the very beginning, Simon approached fatherhood with an intensity that surprised everyone who knew him. He made decisions about Eric's upbringing that seemed to contradict everything about his previous lifestyle. No convoy of security vehicles for school runs. No silver spoon handed out too early. He wanted Eric to learn how to earn things through effort, to understand that privilege came with responsibility. As Eric grew, Simon began restructuring his entire existence around his son's needs. He turned down offers that would pull him away from home for extended periods. He built his schedule around playtime and bedtime stories and the small daily moments that most celebrity parents delegate to staff. The loud world of television slowly gave way to something softer. And then came the realization that Eric needed even more than Simon had imagined. On the complete transformation. After the official diagnosis, Simon Cowell's life underwent a transformation that went far beyond anything the public could see or understand. Everything he used to prioritize, the fame, the travel, the shows, the business deals, all of it stepped aside for something more important. His days now began and ended with Eric in mind. The unpredictable lifestyle he had enjoyed for decades disappeared completely. In its place came structure, routine, and meticulous planning that would have seemed obsessive to his former self. Eric needed consistency above all else. He needed things to happen the same way every day without variation. Simon had to build a world where his son could feel steady and safe regardless of what was happening outside their walls. Back at their home in Malibu, Simon brought in specialists to help redesign the entire living space around Eric's needs. Lights were softened throughout every room to reduce sensory overload. Sounds were minimized and controlled. Textures and materials were chosen specifically to avoid triggering discomfort. Every space had a clear purpose. Nothing was random anymore. The house became a sanctuary where Eric could exist without pressure or overwhelming stimulation. A carefully constructed environment where he could be himself. Simon restructured his entire professional schedule around Eric's therapy sessions and daily routines. Some days focused entirely on speech therapy, painstaking work to help Eric find his voice and communicate his needs to the world around him. Other days emphasized occupational therapy, building the motor skills and sensory processing abilities that would help him navigate the physical world more comfortably. Even simple play dates, the kind that other parents arranged with a casual phone call, required hours of careful preparation and detailed planning. Simon would think through every possible scenario, every potential trigger. every way the situation might become overwhelming, all to ensure that Eric could have positive social experiences. The connection between father and son deepened through this intensive process, not through words, since Eric still struggled to communicate verbally, but through shared effort and patience, and the slow accumulation of small victories that meant everything to both of them. Simon also had to confront emotions he had never expected to feel as a parent, and he did not feel sad about who Eric was. His love for his son was absolute and unconditional and grew stronger every day. But he did grieve for the dreams he had once pictured, the easy conversations and spontaneous adventures and milestone moments that he had imagined sharing with his child before he understood the reality of their situation. Truth over rumors. As months passed following the diagnosis, Simon found himself caught in an increasingly difficult situation that seemed to have no good solution. Rumors about Eric had been building slowly but steadily, appearing in online gossip threads and entertainment news stories with growing frequency and intensity. At first, they were just passing comments, casual speculation from strangers who had noticed something different about Eric during his rare public appearances. But as time went on, the speculation grew louder and more persistent, and increasingly inaccurate in ways that deeply troubled Simon. He watched helplessly as people made assumptions about his son without knowing anything real about him or their family situation. Some commenters tried to be kind but still missed the mark completely, offering armchair diagnoses and unsolicited advice. Others used outdated and harmful stereotypes about autism that had no place in any serious discussion about children with developmental differences. It upset Simon more deeply than any criticism he had ever received about his own career or his role on television shows. He had never felt such a powerful need to protect someone before in his entire life. People around him advised letting it pass, or ignoring the noise and maintaining complete silence until the speculation died down naturally. But that approach did not feel right anymore. The false narratives were not dying down. They were growing stronger with each passing week. Then a tabloid crossed a line that could not be ignored or forgiven. They published photos of Eric during a moment when sensory overload had overwhelmed him completely, and the accompanying article twisted what had happened into something to mock and dissect for the entertainment of their readers. That was the moment Simon knew silence was no longer an option, regardless of the consequences. He put together a carefully worded statement that he released to the press and posted on his social media accounts. It was not long, and it did not reveal extensive personal details about their family life. He simply explained that Eric had autism. He asked for respect and understanding from the public and from the media specifically. He reminded everyone who read his words that Eric was loved and happy, that he simply experienced life differently than most children and deserved to be treated with dignity. The response was overwhelming in ways Simon had not anticipated and could not have prepared for. Parents of autistic children sent letters and messages sharing their own experiences and thanking him for speaking out publicly about something that so many families dealt with in isolation and silence. Advocacy groups reached out with gratitude for using his massive platform to raise awareness about autism and the challenges that families face. The fans showed support in ways that genuinely moved him after years of being seen primarily as the harsh judge who made people cry on television. But the attention also brought new challenges that Simon had to navigate carefully. Every time Eric appeared in public afterward, people watched too closely with their new knowledge about his condition. Every movement, every smile, every moment of hesitation was analyzed and discussed by strangers who thought they now understood everything about his son. Simon had wanted to clear up misconceptions and protect Eric from harmful speculation. But telling the truth brought its own kind of pressure that would never fully disappear from their lives. The cameras may keep rolling, the lights may keep shining, and the world may continue to watch Simon Cowell as the mogul, the judge, the icon. But behind the public image, the real story is far from over. Eric's journey is only beginning, and with it, the lessons that reshaped one of the most powerful men in entertainment continue to unfold. How far will Simon go to protect, to support, to witness the life his son is building? And what will the world learn when the private battles of someone in the spotlight reveal truths that fame and fortune could never teach? The story isn't finished. It's just entering its next chapter.